Hello and welcome to a live deprogram. I am Carrie Smith, and it's a good day. I just had a shower. My husband and I have been putting in the raised beds in our garden, and that which is very exciting. And I had to talk about this today. I wasn't planning on it, but I got a call from a friend yesterday, a Christian friend who I haven't spoken to in quite a while, and this person was asking me like, "What's happening with Candace Owens? What is going on? Is she possessed? Is there some darkness going on? I feel like there's some darkness going on with her." And actually, it was more than Candace. There was a couple of figures, very influential figures she was asking about. And this is a person who maybe doesn't follow things as closely. Not everyone's online as much as some of us are, because they have real lives. They have better things to do, and she wasn't the only person. She happened to be one who called me most recently, but I've had people asking me in messages and comments, and so I thought, "You know what? I'm gonna try and do a short, brief episode about my thoughts about this, um, about what's going on with her." And first of all, I do think it's a cult. I think she is exhibiting several cult, tactics. She's demonstrating several different tactics. I think she's using manipulative language and a lot of, cluster B personality disorder behavior. I think that it's easy to observe that, but apparently it's not easy for some people, I guess, and I'm assuming maybe that's because they haven't been through that before with someone, maybe they haven't experienced it before, and so this is not an episode for people who are in that cult. It's not an episode for people who are just hanging on every word and following it, and, I've interacted with quite a few of you, and I'm not trying to convince you. You're obviously not gonna be happy with this episode and call me all kinds of names. I've been, over the weekend, called every kind of a Jew lover, I'm getting paid 7,000, why don't I go suck blah, 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 like, just terrible very angry things, and, that's okay. This isn't for you. This is an episode for normies who are trying to figure out what's happening because, like a lot of us, they used to put a lot of trust in Candace Owens and some of these other influential figures, and they're like, "What is happening? What happened to her?" It's an attempt to answer that, and I added them up, it's over 10 episodes of her full show recently, post-assassination episodes, and it's more disturbing than if you just watch the clips. A lot of the people in her cult are like, "Oh, you guys haven't seen the episode." No, I've seen many of them, and it's actually more disturbing. So, first of all, if you wanna go and figure out on your own what you think, please, I encourage you, go and pick any one of the post-assassination episodes, watch the whole thing all the way through, and see if you can observe some of these behaviors and tactics. I think you should go and look at it for yourself. So, let's just start with this interview that came out on CNN, and you may not have seen these clips yet, but, um, Candace sat down with this CNN reporter. Now she's lied. She's already been caught in several lies about it. She originally said both on Twitter, like in the written word, and on her podcast and video, said that she came off pretty abrasive, or she was pretty upset in this video because it happened only a couple of days after Charlie was assassinated. Then she later said, no, this episode happened. I didn't do this immediately because she's been criticizing other people, other friends of his for having done interviews so soon after. And she said that I waited 20 days. This was 20 days after. So she's already been caught like saying two different things about it. Was it 2 days after? Was it 20 days after? The CNN reporter has also revealed that she was lying when she said that CNN had promised not to ask her about Charlie, and that they broke that promise. And the CNN reporter said, "Actually, here's our emails. We told her we were going to be asking about Charlie, and she approved it." So she's already been caught in a number of these lies, which is not uncommon with her. But one particular clip, there are lots of interesting clips in the CNN interview, but one that I think is fascinating is she reveals that she doesn't know, like, the bare bones facts about the investigation into Charlie's murder. Um, she actually, maybe for people who are following her very closely in the cult, this would be surprising that she would make a mistake like this, but it's not to me, because if you've watched any of the post-assassination episodes, she hasn't really gotten into the case itself against Tyler Robinson. All of the episodes are spinning off in these increasingly crazy fever dream directions about implicating all kinds of people all over the place, from all of his closest friends and family, his employees, to Israel, Netanyahu. Trump is involved, Kash Patel. Like, it just, the cast of characters she's pointing fingers at continues to get larger. And it's also pulled in random non-public people, like that poor hoodie guy got pulled in, people that she's focusing all this attention on. So she hasn't really spent any time on the case that the state is building. And we don't know everything yet. He has not been to trial yet. As a person who watches a lot of true crime, I find it kind of weird when people in her cult say things to me like, "Do you really believe that he?" I'm like, I'm gonna wait until we see all of the evidence that's presented at trial. Like, I kind of want to see what case they have first. The things that I do know, including things that a lot of people online, internet people, found before the feds even came out and confirmed some of it. There's a lot of text messaging that was going on, or actually I should say Discord messaging going on between himself, his roommate who he was in a romantic relationship with, and several other people in his gamer group on Discord, people who were in this sort of trans furry cult watching pornography of underage anime characters and stuff. There's a lot of stuff that you could cover that she hasn't looked into. And in fact, there's a great article that just came out today on the Post Millennial, that I think everyone should read, that's kind of going into what do we know so far. And I'll put that up on the screen in a second. But first, let's watch this clip from CNN. Her name is Elle Reeve. And I think, just imagine, this is CNN. Imagine, like, just what kind of world are we in where a CNN reporter is managing to dunk on you? Like, you've really spun out that this CNN is, I did not expect this. It's like, wow, they made you look like the fool that you've become. Oh, gosh. Here we go.
When you say you believe that Charlie Kirk was betrayed by someone close to him, what do you mean?
I think that in the coming weeks, there's going to be a lot of financial reports that are coming out. And I, first and foremost, do not believe that Tyler Robinson killed Charlie Kirk. I want to be very clear on that. Whether he was involved, I think the answer is yes. I think that's obvious.
And your basis for saying he didn't act alone is what?
I don't know, maybe the weird Fed messages that were concocted out of thin air that had no timestamp and were written like they were speaking in 1822, among other things. Their lack of an ability to answer any basic questions about what took place.
But do you have any proof that the messages were made up? Because that would be easily proven.
Yeah, but they didn't put timestamps on them, and Discord came out and said they didn't exist.
This was supposedly text messages, not Discord messages. It's my understanding from the indictment.
I actually did not read that they were text messages.
The indictment calls them text messages.
What would it be like the feds are like on a computer, typing it out back and forth?
That's exactly what it is. The feds made up the text messages.
But you don't have anyone from like the FBI telling you that, or law enforcement?
I have leaks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Has anyone leaked to you?
And Tyler Robinson has...
But has anyone said to you, even off the record, like, yeah, we faked these?
I have very strong sources everywhere on both sides.
Well, I look forward to seeing the evidence of that.
Yeah, sure. Because when we keep talking about evidence, it's like, who's going to present that evidence? Like the mainstream media? Like who are you expecting to come out?
Yes, that would be a hot story.
No, it wouldn't be.
It would be.
It wouldn't be.
If the FBI, like if I had a source telling me, like if I had proof that the FBI faked those messages, that would be an enormous story.
Yeah.
Let me just stop right there. I might want to play a little more of that, but it's just, first of all, her tone, her demeanor. This is like very common lately in her podcast. It's I would say it's gotten a lot worse in the past few months where everybody uses scorn, everybody uses mockery at certain times. That's all of these traits I'm about to name are on a spectrum of human behaviors and human traits. But when a person starts to lean so far into them that that's all they're expressing, I would say that maybe 90% of the time on her podcast now, everything is delivered with this scornful, mocking, sarcastic tone. And she will repeat things over and over that she hasn't offered evidence of, but she'll say it 2 or 3 times in a row. It's almost like, when you look at cult leaders, it's like Scott Adams talks about hypnotic speech. It's repeating a thing and repeating it with more conviction, like really selling it, very charismatic. And then later on in future episodes, she'll refer back to those things that she alleged that she never offered evidence for, that hasn't yet been proven, and she'll say them as if those are already established fact. Like she'll build on these she'll build new things upon these previous things that weren't even that weren't even, we don't even know if that's a fact or not. That's an opinion. So it's strange. So there's that tone immediately, which um I have to say, I mean, it's a CNN reporter, so give her a little grace there, because I I would treat them as potentially hostile as well. But her face just looks livid that this person's even asking her questions. And this reporter, I don't know how they chose this reporter to do the interview, Elle, whatever her name is, but it was a good choice for them because she's very disarming and she's not aggressive. And so that actually, when you pair someone like that up with this pretty controlling, angry narcissist, in my opinion, that's what Candace is, then you're going to see that stark contrast even more clearly, because she's just sort of innocuously like, well, so why do you think the text messages were fake? Now, this is an important point. That's a very big deal that she doesn't even realize they were text messages. She said, well, I think they were fake because Discord said they didn't exist. Yeah, because they weren't Discord messages. You're getting all of the evidence that we do know so far confused because you haven't spent any time actually looking at it. The Discord messages with his gamer group are separate from the text that he was sending to his lover. And the weird thing is, she says, and I think they were fake because they don't sound like what I think these people should sound like, what I think a crazy murderous leftist would sound like. It doesn't sound like what I think it should sound like. It's so weird because she's been releasing text messages between herself and Charlie Kirk from years and years ago, from 2018, back when they were close friends. She's been releasing messages from back then. She's not releasing anything recent because they all available evidence seems to point to the fact that when he froze her out of TPUSA, they didn't maintain a close relationship. So all of the messages she's released that prove how close they were, yeah, they were very close. But those are all from 2018. A lot of things happened in those 8 years, you know. So she's putting out these messages, and people are saying, now I happen to think the messages that she's put out with him are real. But there are some people who are questioning if they're real, and they're like, "Hey, these messages don't sound like him." That's the same thing she's saying about the text messages the murderer sent. And they're saying, "Hey, there's no timestamps on these messages you're releasing." Same thing she's saying about the text messages that the feds released. So I just, that's an interesting thing worth pointing out. That she's doing the same thing, releasing these messages that look like they might have been altered. I don't think they were. I think they're real, but some people have brought up valid concerns like, are these even real? There's no timestamps. They're clear. They're from like 7 or 8 years ago, and from what we can tell, supposedly, and they don't sound like the way we think he would talk. That's what she's saying about these. That's her only evidence that these are faked. The CNN reporter has a great point. If it would be very easy to prove if these were faked, and the defense team would have already had that thrown out of evidence, like that already would have been thrown out. So, you know, again, we're speculating about a case that hasn't even, a trial that hasn't even happened yet, but we do have a certain amount of evidence that she just illustrates she's not familiar with at all. So I thought that was kind of a big deal. Um, this is an article that just came out. This is the one I mentioned. This is on the post millennial. This is from my friend Libby Emmons wrote this. It's called the radicalizing relationship between alleged Charlie Kirk assassin Tyler Robinson and trans lover Lance Twiggs. How did he end up the only suspect in the public brutal assassination of conservative activist and thought leader Charlie Kirk? And if you read through this, which everyone should, because this is an update on an actual case, the actual case they're building, um, they go through his relationship with this guy and what their home life was like. And she actually covers some of the things that we previously covered on this channel about the disturbing Discord messages that's separate from the text messages, the Discord messages about the porn that he was consuming and watching on his channel, the stuff that he was writing to friends, that his evolution politically, which was many years in the making. If you look at his group messages, it wasn't just in the past year or two, it was many years in the making. So she covers some of that stuff that we've covered. And then there's a lot more that I had not yet read, where they've got reports here from friends of theirs who knew them and what their home life was like. And so this is, I mean, it's funny that the actual case is getting overshadowed by all of these just sort of out there, insane, in my opinion, conspiracy theories. So let's look at, I'm gonna show you a couple of people who you should check out if you're not already familiar with them. One of them is Milk Bar TV. I've shown some of his clips before. He does a great job of editing together videos of people in their own words to try and show you what you may be missing if you're not tuning in every day, right? So he's done this with Andrew Tate, which, funny enough, Candace Owens is defended and promoted and basically run cover for this predator, this sexual predator. He's done this with Andrew Tate. He's actually being sued by Andrew Tate right now. His name is Nathan Livingston, or Milk Bar TV, and he put together a clip. This was a few weeks ago, trying to show some of the cult tactics from his perspective. Now, I've got some that I want to add to in addition to this, but I'm gonna play this for you in the meantime. Here we go. He's really great at getting footage together.
You got to be just insane to trust the authorities. As soon as somebody says, we're just trusting the authorities, suspect on the list. What do you mean we're trusting the feds? Like, since when are we doing that? And trusting the feds. Don't question anything. I don't really trust these feds, right? I'm like, no, we don't trust the feds. And since when do we trust the feds? Trust us, we're the feds, bro. We don't trust the feds.
Let me just pause this for a second. So a lot of this, like I said, these are messages that she repeats over and over and over. Now, first of all, I don't trust the feds either. But I also don't trust influencers. I don't trust like promo code influencers, and that she's shown me no reason to trust her. And in fact, one of the things she repeats quite often in the show, in addition to telling you who not to trust, which is everyone other than her, one of the things she does a lot, which is pretty common with people with narcissistic personality disorder, is she constantly tells you to trust her. She's constantly telling you to trust her, and she constantly says like things like, I would never lie to you. You know, I wouldn't lie. I don't lie. I don't know how people lie. I can't lie. She says stuff like that over and over. Well, you don't usually have to reinforce that like a used car salesman. A lot of times, like I mentioned, cluster B people tend to do this. They tend to tell instead of show. Why are you trying to sell me on the fact that you're a trustworthy person so hard? Like it should be evidence. It should be something that I learned by watching you and developing that trust over time. But she consistently tells you what to think about her.
I don't trust anybody. I don't trust anything right now. Okay, I trust absolutely nothing. Mia writes, we need truth, and I trust only you right now. Thank you. Aravik writes, you're the only voice I fully trust. Trust me, trust me. Rose writes, no matter what videos I've seen from people on the left or right calling you crazy, I call it fake and gay. You have my full support. Truth is all that matters, and Christ is king. Yeah, here is the thing. People know truth when they hear it. Okay? You know truth. You know truth when you see it. Charlie's neck indeed did stop the bullet, without question. Okay? And this is going to dispel a lot of theories that are out there. And I'm telling you this 100%. Charlie Kirk was shot from the front, and the bullet did not exit. Nothing is making sense at all. It has not made sense from the very beginning, okay? And that's because the feds are involved. I'm grateful that you guys trust.
So there she goes. The feds are involved. That's moving beyond saying, I don't trust the feds. I'm going to wait and see evidence that they present, to the feds are involved. One of the things that she does is she constantly implicates people. And when she first starts implicating a target, she's heavy on the scorn, the sarcasm, and she's heavy on the innuendo and the implication. Okay. And she doesn't come right out and say they're involved until later. So she did this with Israel, and it's a sort of a Mott and Bailey that she gets to play in the public then with the truth, because she'll spend 2 or 3 episodes at the very beginning of all of these post-assassination episodes. She'll spend 2 or 3 implying that Israel had something to do with assassinating Charlie Kirk. The nation of Israel had something to do with it, implying it though heavily. And trust me, her followers are getting the message. They're all in the comments. If you have any doubt about what message she's putting out there, check her comments, because they are telling you. So at the beginning, she was just heavily implying, right? And then when some people in the media and some people on X were calling her out and saying, wow, Candace Owens is accusing Israel, then she gets to play Mott and Bailey, and she would come out, and she did this several times, and say, I never said that directly. I never said it direct. You're a liar. You're a lie. I never said that. No, because she was heavily implying it. And then she moved on to saying it directly. She moved on to saying it directly eventually. She did the same thing with the feds, I'm not saying, I'm just implying, right? She's in the implication stage, heavy on the innuendo. The audience picks up the message. They start blaming the feds are involved in a cover up. She did the same thing with Trump, heavily implying, I'm just putting it out there. I'm just asking questions, bro, that kind of thing. And then she gets to deny that she accused them. And then she eventually accuses them. She has now since accused the feds, the Trump White House of being involved in a cover up. She moves on and escalates to actually making the accusation. She's done the same things with his close friends, Charlie's close friends and family. She is currently in the stage of heavy implication about Charlie's widow, Erica Kirk. And if you go into her last video, I think it was the last one, all of her comments, the top comments from her cult members are, Erica did it. They're all saying Erica did, because they're picking up the message loud and clear. She's in that stage, though, of heavy innuendo. And she will move on. If her previous actions are any indication of what's to come, she will move on into making the outright accusation at some point. And her audience is eating it up. They're like, I can't wait for her to come out again. They're saying this. I can't wait for her to finally do this about Erica. Like they know how it works, whether they want to admit it or not. So this thing about the feds, she's like, they're involved. That goes beyond saying I don't trust anyone. I certainly don't trust the government. I don't trust the media. I don't trust influencers like her. But that you're taking a step beyond that when you say they are guilty of a cover up.
Me to be your voice. They didn't recover a bullet from a 30-06. Just didn't happen. He was shot with a completely different kind of gun, obviously. You can only trust the feds.
She also does that a lot. Well, she'll say something that's with no evidence. She says it like it's a fact, and she backs it up repeatedly with obviously. The implication being you are stupid if you don't see this. You're not putting together the dots that I am. You're not smart. You should open your eyes, that kind of thing.
Tell us what happened. Yeah, right. We can't trust them at all. I only have a platform because I keep telling the truth. If I had lied, I wouldn't have earned your trust.
That's what I was talking about earlier. There's this constant reinforcement. And if you were someone who has unfortunately had a cluster B personality disordered person in your life, maybe they were NPD, a narcissistic personality disorder, maybe they were borderline, but you will recognize this is they tell you what their character traits are. Well, it's weird. In the Bible, it says, there's a verse, somebody help me out in the chat with this, but there's a verse about, don't let a compliment about yourself leave your lips. Like, let someone else do that. Like it will come if that's true about you, because people will see it through your behavior, but she will constantly tell you about her character traits. I wouldn't have your trust. Also, it's assuming she has your trust. It's an assumed fact. Like, I have your trust, clearly. I wouldn't have your trust if I lie. I tell the truth. The truth will always come out, and I am the truth. That reminds me of Fauci, honestly. That reminds me of another narcissist sociopath, Fauci, during the COVID years when he was saying that he is science. If you disagree with him, you're disagreeing with the science. I guess if you disagree with her, you're disagreeing with the truth. The truth is her. That's the message you're picking up. And it's repeated multiple times in each episode. She is the truth. She is the truth teller. Let me just back it up a little bit.
I wouldn't have earned your trust. There's old footage of Tyler Robinson that is now circulating from a car accident that he had. Tyler certainly refers to it as his car, not his vehicle.
As I get it.
That's not true. He's about to show you. I saw this video too. He refers to it in this footage from a cop's camera when he was involved in a little minor accident. He calls it a vehicle. I mean, this was her trying to say, look, the text messages between him and his lover must have been faked and the feds are involved in a cover-up. And how do I know? Because in the text messages, he referred to a vehicle, but in this old video from a traffic accident, he doesn't call it a vehicle. Well, actually, yeah, he does call it a vehicle. So even your point, and even if she had been true, by the way, and he hadn't called it vehicle, that's still ridiculous to say, well, I know the feds are involved in a cover-up because this one time in this video, he said the word car instead of vehicle, but he didn't. It's not even true. He didn't even do that.
And as I get into the intersection, there was a vehicle in the lane.
So I say, just be transparent. I don't trust people that don't just release and speak about everything. There's a lot more information that I wish I could share. There is, of course, a specific reason why I'm asking for that. If you're going to be transparent, be transparent. I think you should let me see that because people trust me. I'm not going to publish it. I just want to see it. I'm not going to publish it. She promises this all the time. One of the things she tries to do is she bullies people and demands that they put statements, that they make statements that that they give her attention, like a narcissistic sociopath. She demands their attention. Let me tell you, one of the craziest things was a lot of Candace cultists. This was weeks ago. She made a statement in her video that, if Erica Kirk wants me to stop doing this, then I'll stop. Erica Kirk has to tell me basically that to stop, and I will. And I thought that was chilling. It was so chilling. This was weeks and weeks ago. This was right after the assassination. I can't remember. It was either right before or right after the memorial service. I think it was before even. But it was at a time when, I mean, this woman is grieving the public execution of her husband. Her children are now fatherless, and she's trying to fulfill her late husband's wishes and take over the company and run it for him like he wanted her to do. She's trying to do all of this and grieve. And this crazy sociopath on the internet is like, you must interrupt your grieving process and address me directly and tell me to stop, and then I'll stop. Like, that's how I heard that. That's exactly what that is. That's a threat. That is, I will continue until you come and acknowledge me. And it's making demands. If you've never been targeted by a sociopath like this before, you may not, maybe I guess you don't recognize it, because some people were saying it to me like they thought this was evidence of her goodwill or something. They're like, it's manipulative to say Erica must be okay with this because she hasn't complied with the checklist of demands I made about how to prove that she's not okay with. That's ridiculous. She doesn't have to acknowledge you at all. You can't take her not acknowledging it at all as indication that she's cool with it or that she's not cool with it. But that's a manipulator. That's what they do. She's like, if she doesn't acknowledge it, then I guess she's okay with. No, that's not true. And to require that this person make a statement. At that time, Charlie's pastors were making statements asking for her to stop. Friends of the family were making statements, and she was running all over them. She didn't care. I tried to imagine putting myself in the shoes of someone like Erica. Like, what would that be? I don't think I would be able to even think about what this crazy person is saying online. And I certainly would go to people who I depend on, who are rocks in my life, and ask them, can you deal with it? And can you say something about it? Because I'm not, I don't want to be involved in that. But she didn't respect the wishes of Charlie's pastor or his closest friends. Of course not. And when she said that, like,
she has to make a statement and then I'll stop. Any of us who've dealt with a personality type like this, we know that's not true anyway. That's never going to be true. Even if Erica Kirk went on national television and begged her to stop, then the narrative would switch and it would be like, aha, see, Erica, I knew she was involved. She's asking me to stop. She's involved in the cover. That's what it would be. It would continue. This kind of personality does not quit. It is demonic, which is funny because she's been accusing Seth Dillon and others of being demonic. I'll have more to say about that in a second, but it's just, they need to put out this whole thing about like they have to put out statements. She's been accusing, like I said, his closest friends, like Mikey McCoy, his assistant. She's done entire episodes pointing the finger at this poor kid. She's done episodes trying to malign the character of Rob McCoy, Mikey's dad, who was Charlie's pastor. And she always says, like she did in these little clips we're seeing, she says it, whether it's about Andrew Colvert or it's about Mikey or it's about Rob or it's about Erica, whoever it's about, she's always demanding that they give her that supply, that narcissistic supply, that they validate her, that they acknowledge her and they interact with her and they take her orders. That's what it is. It's like, prove your innocence by acknowledging me and releasing a statement about what I want you to release a statement about. And it never works anyway, because you can see some of her targets do respond, and then she mocks them. She makes fun of them for releasing statements contradicting her and trying to set the record straight. She makes fun of the length of their statements. She says, well, there must be something there since you acknowledged it and released the statement. She does that crazy thing where you're backed into a corner by this kind of sociopath. You can't, if you ignore it, well then, oh, you must be covering something else. Why won't you be transparent? And if you address it, then it's like, oh, I guess there's something there. You addressed it. It's so devious. It is amazing to me watching it and realizing, I guess, fortunately or unfortunately, maybe fortunately, there are some people who are so trusting and naive. They haven't dealt with this kind of personality before. And they're like, they don't see it. I tried to write a post explaining some of these things, and there was an overwhelming response from people saying, there were some people who were saying, thank you, this is exactly what I've been seeing, and thanks for putting it into words. But there were others who they thought it was impressive or something, the list. It's not impressive. This is obvious. I guess it's a good thing if you haven't experienced it before, but that's what this is. These are demands for her targets to give her narcissistic supply.
That because people trust me. I'm not going to publish it. I just want to see it. I'm not going to publish the footage, but I want to see it with my own two eyes so I can stand on this platform, so I can sit here on this platform and I can say to the world, no funny business happened.
Who are you to say to the world? Like, again, there's this grandiosity that is a characteristic of people with MPD. That's sort of, where she keeps talking about like, America trusts me, and I'm going to stand here and say to the world, and I deserve to see this footage. There was some footage that was given to the FBI from TPUSA staff that she's been demanding now for a while that they turn it over to her. Why? Who are you? Like, there's a murder investigation happening, and she is trying to convince her audience that it's somehow suspicious that this organization wouldn't just say like, sure, here you go. By the way, these are lies. Like, I wouldn't publish it. You're a liar. You are publishing messages from your dead friend from 7 or 8 years ago that when he was young and maybe had not learned to, like the Bible says, guard his tongue as well. Like, we've all gone through that stage before, and he has no say over it from beyond the grave over like you publishing his private messages. Like, you have no respect or regard for anyone. So this complete lie of like, why don't you trust me? Give me the footage. Give me all the, I wouldn't publish it. Well, does your behavior indicate that there's any truth to that? No, it doesn't. In fact, anyone who's ever sent her any kind of message is probably like, oh my gosh, this woman has just no standards whatsoever. No standards of decency.
Truly, we can all go home It was Tyler Robinson, and he acted alone. And I think the world would trust me. I think the world would trust me.
Yeah. No, hun. No. So let's get into this is another person who I think is worth checking out if you're interested in this and you're interested in people who are following it more closely than I am. Her name is, I don't know her, but I follow her, and she's been like Milk Bar TV, doing a good job putting things out in clip form. And let me just add this one. This is Natalie Jean Bessner. Her handle on X is NJBEISNER. And so she's been doing a great job of putting some of these clips out. And so she says, quote, she's quoting Candace in this episode, "This was an inside job. Turning Point USA was involved." And she says, "There it is. Finally. Finally. Now everyone telling me she's not accusing anyone can shut the F up, because she's absolutely accusing Charlie's closest friends and allies of murdering him, and accusing his widow of keeping his murderers not only free but still employed there." And I just want you to watch this clip. And this is an illustration of her tactic that I just mentioned, which is she starts off by heavily implying and doing that kind of implication for a few weeks, and her audience gets the message. She then denies and says, "I never said that." And then she escalates and eventually just says it.
Stages of grief. The one they don't tell you about is when you get beyond all the stages, you've accepted that this person is not coming back, and then you just want to punch people in the face for lying about everything. I'm there. Everything they are telling us is crazy town, okay? I wake up and I learn something new and I get angry. I'm so angry, I'm taking it out on the team. I'm like, no, this does not make any sense. I can't explain to you why it doesn't make sense because I went through Turning Point USA, but every little micro change is sending me in this moment. It's a very personal thing. I know how Turning Point operates their events, things that the world does not know. I have been privy to. And that's why I said, you know what, let's actually scour through my emails. I was like, Savannah, let's just go back so that we can share these things with the world, that you guys can join me in my frustration of wanting to punch somebody, anybody in the face, okay? So yesterday, we had mentioned to you that the timeline is absolutely absurd, okay? The absolute absurdity of Turning Point, as we learned, having received a request from Charlie, from UVU, for Charlie to speak on their campus in mid-July. Okay, just a few weeks before he dies. In mid-July, they get a request. Can Charlie speak on campus? And then they immediately...
I want you to look at what she's doing with her face here. She does this a lot as well. She's always scrunching up her face and saying something. When she's delivering information, she's always saying it as if there's something super suspicious about it. I actually thought of doing a comedy video where you just make everything like I could read the ingredients on a box of muffins and make it sound like that box of muffins is the secret killer. Like she reads it like in this sort of like, you know, and they sent an email in July. Okay. In July, seeking the event just 2 months later. Okay. Like that's the way it says. Is there something nefarious here? Are we all supposed to be on the same page? She does this with all kinds of things, but I just had to point that out. Her tone, it's the charisma. She's very good at the nonverbal cues, that this is very suspicious.
Immediately approve that request, and they schedule it as his first stop some 6 weeks later. That has never happened in the history of my having done campus tours, okay? This was a tour stop. And you literally get these requests months before you start sorting through them. I mean, I'm going to show you the real proof so that you can grasp how atypical the setup is, okay? Charlie and I went on tour in April of 2024 together. We actually also split doing certain locations because they want to do as many locations all over the United States as possible. And April of 2024 is when our campus events began. I'm now going to show you an email of when we started planning that. Okay. So keep in mind, the back of your mind, this request for UVU came in July and they approved it for September. For my April 2024 event, here is when we started planning. Here's an email. Okay. You will note that this email came in October.
I have to stop it there. We just, again, it's with the tone of voice, like, so this event, we're supposed to think that there was something fishy here because some type of planning email was sent in July for an event in September. And that's fishy because she can go back a year and a half to the last of Turning Point event she did over a year and a half ago. And she's like, and let me show you the evidence. Aha! Like this particular event was planned in October and it was for April, like, okay, so there was a longer planning period. Maybe. I don't even know if that's true because I don't know all the emails that were sent to set this up in July and when they actually started. I used to work in events. I used to book comedians all around the country. Some of them were booked last minute. I'm talking about nationally touring comedians too. Some of them were booked last minute. Some of them were not. Sometimes you got gigs added to an existing tour where you're already on tour. And then they're like, let's plug in a date. Let's plug in this city here. This makes sense. You can pick up some, an extra gig here while you're already in the area. So all of that is just like, it's not like, I don't know. It would not hold up in a court of law. Let's put it that way. There was something fishy because, let me pull up the last time I was booked and you'll see it was in October. Like, okay. It's the tone of voice to me. That's comedy brain in me is like, this is just so outlandish. If you speak this way, that it, it it's meant to impart the impression from gullible people that you are speaking from authority, that they're stupid if they don't see it, and that there's something fishy going on. I've got a couple of clips to illustrate this, but first, one of the things she does is she deals in like mystical knowledge, things that only she can know. Now, sometimes she does that by saying, like she does often, that she's like the number one expert on how TPS USA works, and she tried to cast suspicion on their audio visual guy. There's so many people she's cast suspicion on, but she did a whole episode attacking the AV guy, poor AV guy, and talking about how there were a lot of new things since I used to tour with Charlie. Like they had people watching the events now back at the TP USA office. But she says it like it's so suspicious. And they said it was because they wanted to be able to cut clips from the live event in real time and get them up before other people cut clips. But they had never did that when I was on the road, like, and therefore the AV guy is involved in some conspiracy and you're supposed to like just extrapolate from there. Oh, that guy sounds fishy too, So here's some of the mystical knowledge has to do with, her being this expert and she's trying to present herself. In fact, she says several times that Charlie knew. She says Charlie knew I was the only one. She says that I was the only one who would try and find out who really killed him. He knew I was the only friend, is what she saying and trying to imply over and over and over. Well, you guys weren't close for years, but you're trying to mislead your audience. I would tell your audience, I mean, they're not going to be swayed by any of this, but like, it's weird how she has no problem releasing all these messages from her friend who was assassinated, but there's like none of these close messages between them showing their friendship in recent years at all. They're all from like 2018 for a reason. So some of her knowledge, her like insider knowledge, has to do with her being a USA expert, her being the only and closest friend of Charlie Kirk, which is not true. A lot of the people she's attacking were much closer friends and currently, like recently, very close friends and confidants of his, and she's attacking them. The other is that she's relying on mystical knowledge. And what do I mean by that? A lot of cult leaders do this. They, God speaks to them and tells them this. So with her, she has now invented a ghost Charlie. She says that Charlie came to her in a dream. And I'm going to play this clip for you. Now, she refers back to this dream, like she does a lot of the things that she puts out there and doesn't have evidence for, hasn't proven. She will refer back to this dream in future episodes when she wants an extra bit of weight and authority against one of her targets, like one of the people she's attacking. So, for example, she was attacking Lila Rose, who's a conservative, pro-life activist and speaker. She randomly like I said, she pulls all kinds of people into this to go after them. She was attacking Lila Rose and the woman who introduced her to Lila Rose. I'll show you that clip in a second. But she'll like randomly, when she's attacking someone later on, she'll bring the dream back up, this dream I'm about to show you, and she'll embellish it and add to it and say, oh, and by the way, this person is a person that Charlie warned me about in that dream that I had. Like she'll you're like, whoa. So the dream keeps getting like bigger. And it's she refers back to it like it's an authoritative source, this mystical knowledge that she has communicated through a dream. Here we go.
I similarly, like I just said, had a vivid dream this weekend, and Charlie came to me and he told me that he was betrayed. And so for me, you don't have to believe that, but I do believe that. And it was the immediate sense I got, actually. And I don't know who exactly it is that betrayed him, but I also felt in the dream that it is soon going to be revealed, that it's actually inevitable that it is going to be revealed, that there is nothing and no one that is going to stop the truth from coming out, and it is going to have international consequences. Take that to the bank. Quote me on that. Women tend to have a stronger intuition about people, I would say. I think it was the writer, producer Conrad Flynn that recently went on to Tucker Carlson's show, and he discussed that phenomenon in the context of the persecution of Christ. He was talking about Pontius Pilate's wife.
By the way, let me pause it right here. I do have a very strong intuition about you. Does it ever work in reverse? Is it ever like, would she give credence to that? Like, no, I guess it's just that I'm being paid $7,000 to say that. Okay, so that dream, as I mentioned, she refers back to this and uses it. This is just so disgusting. She uses it to put words in Charlie Kirk's mouth from beyond the grave. Now, if I were to have a dream like that about a friend who passed away, I might put some credence or stock in it as well. I'll be totally forthright about that. I don't know if that were to happen to me, but to then use it to attack people I'm attacking and add to it and bring it up and use it as some sort of authoritative source of like, it just seems, it's so ghoulish. It's like animating this person that she keeps calling a friend from beyond the grave to put words in his mouth. I kind of left me speechless when I saw her doing that. So that's just, there you go. That's one thing that's happening. I want to give you an example of these sort of deep dives that she does, these like little research things. Now, part of what she's doing is in any given episode that she's laying out lots of things that are supposed to be facts. She'll prep you and she'll say, and I've got lots of, and she always teases it too. I've got never before released text messages with Charlie Kirk coming up soon. She tags it. That's creepy, first of all. But she'll also say, we've got a lot of evidence and things I want to show you. And then it'll be some like weird goose chase where she's tracing different flight logs and getting the dates wrong or getting the locations wrong or something. Later you find out there's even mistakes in it. But even if there weren't mistakes in it, you're never really sure what's the implication. What does this even mean? I'm going to show you an example. One of these episodes, she went on this long rant about connecting all the dots, and she even did a screen where she was connecting all these people, kind of like the famous conspiracy theory meme where the guy's got the red string and connecting everything. And the whole thrust of this really seems to just be that she decided to look at people who worked at Turning Point USA and also anybody who has ever criticized her, and then find out if any of them have relatives who were in the military. What? I'm serious. And somehow this is all related to a big conspiracy to assassinate Charlie Kirk. But that's really, just watch it. This is just bizarre.
Time frame thereafter, I'm doing my show. I think my first episode with PragerU was in March. Charlie's still climbing. Turning Point USA, as you know, became a behemoth. I remember speaking at their conferences and saying that they were now running like a military operation. It was so efficient, on time, it was tactical. And I did not realize at that time how prescient that thought would become. Because as you guys know, in my old age, I have grown increasingly interested in genealogy, because you really start to recognize certain patterns when you look into who people's fathers are, who their grandfathers were, who their great-grandfathers were. And the one thing that has shocked me about Charlie and Turning Point USA is just how many military characters were surrounding him. Even in September 10th, people that were in the hospital, right? Let's just, take a look at the chart that we have put together. And this is in an early phase, but it's interesting at the very least, okay? We've got Frank Turek. And Frank Turek, if we want to go through this, we got Andrew Colvett, Rob McCoy, Mikey McCoy, Tyler Boyer. Let's start with Frank Turek. If
By the way, Frank Turek, if you don't know, is one of Charlie's pastors, like mentors, who helped him with Christian apologetics. I wasn't that familiar with Frank Turek until Charlie's assassination, and I consider it one of the many ways in which, that Bible verse about how God says, what you intended for evil, like you intended to harm me, but God intended it for good. There's lots of verses like that about how God can spin goodness out of an evil act, right? And one of those like unexpected blessings for me personally was discovering Frank Turek and being able to watch some of his speeches and his testimony about Christ since then. So she wants to talk about intuition. I got a really great intuition about this guy, a very positive one, but he's Charlie's close friend and mentor. So she's got to tear him down. And how's she going to tear him down? Oh, he or someone he knows was in the military. Oh, that's it. Okay.
and this is in an early phase, but
By the way, my dad was in the army. I'm involved in my dad served. I'm very proud of my dad. Both of my grandfathers served. Like, what is your deal?
it's interesting at the very least, okay? We've got Frank Turek. And Frank Turek, if we want to go through this, we got Andrew Colvett, Rob McCoy, Mikey McCoy, Tyler Boyer. Let's start with Frank Turek if we have that card. And Frank Turek, again, has been honest, former officer in the U.S. Navy. And then he turned to Christian apologetics. He has 2 sons that are in the military, fly planes, as well as one of his son's spouses that's in the military. Again, he's never lied about this. Andrew Colvett, by the way, if you don't know, I didn't know.
Although also the way she says that, as if he should have, as if he should be ashamed. He's never lied about this, that they're all in the military. It's right out in the open. He's got sons who served in the military. Oh my goodness.
I don't think Charlie knew, certainly not when Tyler brought him or when he got hired. His brother, Captain Kurt Colvett, is in the military. His cousin, Captain Robert Colvett, is high up in the military. So that's interesting. Very interesting to me, at least, because I just am like, oh, that's kind of something I was not aware of. I thought he was just a PR guy, someone that was working PR and was found and things, went forward. Obviously, Rob McCoy, another pastor, but a pastor with a very strong military background. Pastor Rob McCoy, his father was a naval captain, Roy Edgar McCoy, but also
She really hates Pastor Rob McCoy, sorry. This was Charlie's pastor. She hates this man. There's a few, like I said, she's the net of people that she's cast aspersions on is very wide now. There's a ton of people, but having watched so many episodes, I would say the one she currently hates the most, she hates Rob McCoy, I think because he sees what she is and what she's doing and says it truthfully. She hates Seth Dillon. She called Seth Dillon a demon. She went on Dave Smith's show and called him a demon. And she said that he was a demon because he contacted her privately as a friend and told her he was concerned about her. This is a while back. And that therefore indicates he's like this horrible person. He's demonic. He did something wrong by contacting her privately and asking if she was okay. Like that is what friends do, actually. That is what you're supposed to do. And it's very respectful to do it privately. in a friendly way and not put you on some public blast or something. That was her root issue with him. Everything I've seen from Seth Dillon online is he is a man who, like Charlie Kirk, behaves in the same way he speaks. He walks the walk. I've never seen him engage in the kind of behavior she's engaged in. I've never seen him engage in gossip and slander and attacking people the way she does, and outright deceit and malicious, like the contempt that she speaks with. I've never seen him speak like that. Go watch interviews with him. But she hates Seth Dillon. And then the third one, I would say, out of all of her targets, she hates Rob McCoy, Seth Dillon, and she hates Josh Hammer. I don't know anything about Josh Hammer, really. I only learned of his name after the assassination, but man, she hates that guy. And she mentions the names of her enemies. This is something else she does. The ones that she hates the most, she name drops them over and over in every episode. Like, they won't even have anything to do with whatever her current topic is today, like, I don't know, the military thing, but she'll find a way to bring up Seth Dillon, and she'll find a way to bring up Josh Hammer in every episode multiple times, and it's almost like training your cult to hate these men, to have a lot of wrath for these men. It made me think of Orwell's 2 Minutes of Hate, except it's constant. It's several times per episode, and you're basically, if the people who are the most plugged into her and are a part, feel like a part of this thing, it's almost like they're practicing this communal hate with her and aiming it at these people. It's no surprise to me that someone was arrested for sending death threats to Seth Dillon, and that person followed, what was it? It was a handful of people, like 10 people maybe on X, and she was one of them. And this kind of stuff he was sending to Seth Dillon and other people indicated to me he had been very plugged into her episodes. Is she responsible for what that crazy person did? No. But is she influencing perhaps some of the more mentally unstable members of her cult? I think so. I don't think she's helping them. They're making targets out of these men. Who knows what Pastor Rob McCoy's life is like right now with this sociopath with this huge amount of influence putting a target on his back. I can't even imagine what that's like.
So, and this is kind of shocking, his father was also the assistant chief of staff for psychological warfare in the Navy. Psychological warfare. This is the name of the game. And that trajectory is increasingly interesting to me. I think we have this clip from an investigative journalist named George Webb, who speaks a little bit further about Rob. And obviously, this is Mikey McCoy's family. Take a listen.
I'm going to skip ahead because she plays this guy, which I'm not that interested in, but she gets back into it and drawing these connections again. Here we go.
Telling you Marissa straight military. I then went to obvious. What happened in my life after that was I went from PragerU, and you got a pastor, from the military, 2 pastors from the military there. I'm telling you Marissa straight military. I then went to obviously the Daily Wire, and the president at the time of the Daily Wire was also a naval intelligence officer who decided to become a pastor. That was John Lewis. And I'm like, actually, in retrospect, what are the chances that we just have so many military people that are in media? How organic is this? Who's the biggest person on YouTube? Right? I just got interested. I started asking questions like, are we in a military simulation? Mr. Beast. Both of his parents high up in the military. Do you think he really was just getting trillions and gazillions of views because people wanted to see somebody count to 1 million? Or is that interesting, but also it might be relevant that his family's military, like high up in the military? Everywhere I looked, every time I was like, well, this person, I got interested even in Lila Rose, right? Catholic, does this whole, speaks about, and she's always been very lovely to me, speaks about the pro-life movement and converted to Catholicism and got a story there. I met her through Marissa. It's kind of the same people funding both. And it was kind of interesting. Like when I would see Lila kind of jump on the attacking the Christ is King or trying to rationalize why we shouldn't say Christ is King all the time. And she was like the lone Catholic that was doing that. And
by the way, that's dishonest. That's completely dishonest as well. That's completely dishonest. Lila Rose, who, as I mentioned, is a Catholic and who speaks against abortion and is an activist and a lecturer against abortion. She wasn't saying that you can't say Christ is king. Seth Dillon and Joel Berry from the Babylon Bee never said you can't say Christ. Nobody who had an issue with some of the people saying Christ is king had an issue with the phrase itself. And that is very dishonest to do that. And to pretend like, oh, I don't know, Lila Rose is a Catholic who doesn't think you should say Christ is king. That is not what she said. What we said correctly was that we observed very many people using that phrase deceptively, deceitfully, and spewing anti-Christian sentiment out of their mouth and then saying Christ is king at the end of it, which is actually taking the Lord's name in vain. It's not taking scripture seriously. It's not taking Christ seriously. It's trying to crap all over the name of Christ. And when people are pointing that out and asking questions and saying, why are people doing this to this phrase? Why are people trying to put crap all over this phrase? Why are groypers? Why are Nick Fuentes people spouting a bunch of vile anti-Christian garbage and then at the end saying Christ is king? I had people in my comments do this to me all the time. The groypers do. The fascists, the white nationalists, they'll come in, they'll say a bunch of really crude, disgusting stuff that's not Christ-like at all. F you, using all kinds of stuff like this. Why don't you go suck, like all kinds of sex acts and stuff they tell me to do and horrible things they say. And then they're like, Christ is king. Like, wow, that's not Christian at all. There's nothing Christian in that. And what you're doing is trying to disparage the name of Christ, make a mockery of that phrase. And that's what Lila Rose was talking about. And she knows this, whether she, like she knows there's no way you don't know what the point was. That's a purposeful bit of dishonesty that just grosses me out. She just throws it in there as an aside. Oh, Lila Rose was a Catholic who doesn't think you should say Christ is king. That's not true.
Very lovely to me. It speaks about the pro-life movement and converted to Catholicism and got a story there. I met her through Marissa. It's kind of the same people funding both. And it was kind of interesting. Like when I would see Lila kind of jump on the attacking the Christ is king or trying to rationalize why we shouldn't say Christ is king all the time. And she was like the lone Catholic that was doing that. And I then got super interested in her when she messaged me about Andrew Tate. And she had someone on her show that was Andrew Tate's, one of the accuser's lawyers. And I was like, this has nothing to do with the pro-life movement. What are you doing? I asked her and she's like, well, and that woman then attacked me and Tucker Carlson. I said, that's weird. Like, that's kind of random. You're supposed to be the pro-life person. And you're talking about, and you're talking to Andrew Colvet's, the party to that lawsuit. You're talking to her lawyer. Why on your show? Why are you the first show she would pick? Why?
This is also a bit of sophistry. This is ridiculous. Why can't she talk about as Lila actually responded to this in a very graceful way. I saw it. It was very graceful. It was much more charitable than I could have been. She even said in her response, she complimentary things about Candace, even though Candace just did this to her. Why she can talk to anyone she wants to about any topic she wants to. Apparently on her show, which I haven't seen before, she covers a number of topics. It's so weird. It's like, again, this is projection. This is a woman. Candace Owens is a woman who is on the internet demanding that the FBI turn over footage to her that she promises not to publish. She's demanding that people give her things that are part of the investigation that she promises not to publish. She has a right to it. Why? Why is that your domain? And yet you point fingers at Lila Rose and say, because she was covering the Andrew Tate case, that's somehow, that's suspicious. That's weird. That's not her domain. She doesn't get to have opinions about that. Sounds like she reached out to you as a friend because she liked you and wanted you to know she had interviewed the lawyer of one of the accusers. But at that time, Candace Owens was running cover for and promoting and defending the Tate brothers. And she actually, if you go back and watch that, Milk Bar TV, who I mentioned before, did a great compilation of what she was doing at the time. She put a target on the back of some of these accusers, these women, and she said their name on the air. But then she covered up the name of one of the guys who's convicted of sexual assault of one of these women. Like, she protected his identity, even though it's a matter of public record because he was convicted. She protected the sex offender's identity, but not the women who've made the accusations. Everything she did back then around the Andrew Tate thing, that should have been your first red flag. Like, something is off. A lot of people have said to me, do you think it's mental illness? I don't think it's mental illness. I think it's moral illness. I think something's wrong morally. She rails against pornography. There's clips of her, I'm sure you've seen it, talking about the Jews being responsible for pornography. Humans are responsible for pornography. Fallen man is responsible for sin and for evil and for wickedness. Yeah, there's a lot of Jews in porn. There's a lot of non-Jews in porn. There's a lot of people responsible for it, but it's a human sin. It's a human failing. And I don't take her quite seriously that she even cares about porn when she brings on this guy who made all of his money, Andrew Tate, off of pimping out girls, off of selling porn, and off of, admittedly, in his own words, taking advantage of men and taking, in some cases, their life savings because they were hooked on this porn. And she brings him on. He's a close personal friend of her husband's. And she brings him on and defends this predator who's currently facing criminal charges of sex with a minor and sexual exploitation of women, the sex trafficking of women. It blows my mind. So yeah, she's attacking Lila Rose because Lila Rose dared to speak to the lawyer of one of the accusers of Andrew Tate. And she finds that just, there's something suspicious and fishy there, right? I guess.
Oh, that was Andrew Tate's, one of the accuser's lawyers. And I was like, this has nothing to do with the pro-life movement. What are you doing? I asked her and she's like, well, and that woman then attacked me and Tucker Carlson. I said, that's weird. Like, that's kind of random. You're supposed to be the pro-life person. And you're talking about, and you're talking to Andrew Colvet's, the party to that lawsuit. You're talking to her lawyer. Why on your show? Why are you the first show she would pick? Why doesn't she go on like CNN or Fox News? And I looked, and of course, yeah, you got military all over that background. And I'm going, is anything not military? I'm looking at Barry Weiss. And
so do you see what she just did there? She started off with a chart with like the conspiracy theory thing where you've got you're connecting all the dots and you've got the chart and the pictures of people's faces and look at all these people at TPUSA and they all know somebody in the military or they were in the military and this is all getting so fishy, guys. There's military people actually know people in the military. And then she expands it to, by the way, this woman, this pro-life Catholic woman criticized me recently or didn't like how I reported on Andrew Tate. She jumps back in time to the Andrew Tate coverage and she says, and Lila Rose, and by the way, that woman over here who has nothing to do with TPUSA, that woman also has a military background. Do you see, guys? Do you see? It's all so fishy. And then she goes to Barry Weiss. I mean, this is very common though. She jumps around and I just imagine the people that are plugged into it are taking notes at home and they're like, okay, and Lila Rose is also a military family. And who now? Barry Weiss. And if I'm just some little lady on the internet, but if she ever found this video, I'm sure she'd be like, and Carrie Smith's dad was in the army, and therefore part of this, let me put her on the chart. Like, this is it's not schizophrenic. I don't think it's schizophrenic. Some people have said, is it schizophrenia? I don't think so. I do think it's cluster B, but it mimics a little bit of what you would see with schizophrenia, obsession, hyper focus on certain topics, and then trying to connect unrelated, disparate things and thinking that there's a lot of there's deep meaning or symbology and or there's something symbolic. Something symbolic about a common trait. Like, how many of these people have family that works in the military? That's suspicious, right? Okay. How many of these people like to eat mashed potatoes? Oh my gosh, this one does, and this one does, and you spend a whole hour plotting out every person you've interacted with who eats mashed potatoes, and then at the end of the episode, you're just like, wait, but what? But what did you prove?
Drew Colvet's the party to that lawsuit. You're talking to her lawyer. Why on your show? Why are you the first show she would pick? Why doesn't she go on like CNN or Fox News? And I looked, and of course, yeah, you got military all over that background. And I'm going, is anything not military? I'm looking at Barry Weiss and I'm looking into her grandfather and There's a story that's just incredible. A bomb thrown on at his house I think it's in Philly or somewhere, maybe it's Pittsburgh, and that's related to the casinos. I mean, the whole thing starts getting really crazy when you realize everyone's somehow attached to Raytheon, right? Mr. Beast, they're all attached to Raytheon in one way or the other. And I find that to be interesting.
Okay, so she brought, just to keep score, it was some TPOSA people. We started there. How many of them were either in the military or have family members that were in the military? And then we jumped to Lila Rose, abortion activist, has family in the military. And then we jumped to Bari Weiss, has family in the military. And then Mr. Beast. Now, Mr. Beast also, it's very suspicious because Mr. Beast has family. Who is Mr. Beast? Someone's asking. He's, I don't know, primarily, he's one of the biggest YouTubers. He may be the biggest YouTuber. He does a lot of programming that's geared towards young people and towards children. He's had a number of scandals himself, but it's in a totally different part of the internet than politics, and it's just kind of weird. Like it does remind me. I had a friend who struggled with schizophrenia and sometimes would bring in like these random things and sees connections everywhere. Yes, thank you, Rock Lexicon. Sorry, Zero FUX says, Carrie, you taught me about apophenia before and the tendency to see meaningful patterns and connections between unrelated things. That is what is going on here. It is. And thank you, because I was trying to remember the word. Apophenia. I read once this great article about apophenia, and it was about how, like, if you went to one of these escape room things, which are pretty popular now. I don't know if you guys have ever done one. I've done a couple of them. They're fun. You go in, it's a room, you go in with a group of friends, and there's a certain number of clues that you have to find in order to find the key to get out of the room. And they time you and they see how fast can you get out of the room in the time limit, and how fast can you do it. And if you have people in your group who are really good at solving puzzles, then you might move faster because you might have people whose brain just like works that way. But anyway, this guy was describing apophenia as being, he watched a group once who was in a room, one of these escape game things, and they all got obsessed on something that they thought was a clue in the room, but it wasn't a clue. And so they all spent the rest of the hour trying to get out of the room by working that thing into it, and that thing was just peeling paint on the wall or something that had nothing to do with the escape room. It just happened to be there, but they kept trying to work it in. And I thought that was a great illustration of how this works. Is people experiencing apophenia will just see these connections that don't exist between these random things. There's a lot of these in her videos. I'm trying to find one. There was one related to the Brigitte Macron thing that was even crazier, and I'm trying to find it because this one was a while ago, and it was where she started adding up like letters and numbers, corresponding numbers of all these different people, including Brigitte Macron, and it was a weird like chart of people, like different people's faces. Oh, I know what it was. This is going to sound insane because it is insane. If somebody knows what this clip is, drop it. I wish I had prepared this one. This is when she started talking about the Milgram prison experiment, and she said all those people who were involved in the Stanford prison experiment, that all those people who were involved in it, if you looked at their like some kind of numerology and added up something, that each one of those people you found out had at one point been near a military base. And none of it though made any sense, even if you're trying to follow her logic. If somebody has that clip, share it with me, because watching it is the kind of thing that you're sitting there and you're like 10 minutes in and you're like, this is crazy. Like, this is absolutely doesn't make any sense. I'm not laughing at her because she's mentally ill. I think she's morally ill, and I think it's funny that this is even being taken seriously by people. I think the only reason that there haven't been more people kind of with much, much greater influence than I have, people who have actual influence, the only reason they haven't been saying anything is, number one, if you've ever run into a person like this before, a narcissistic sociopath. You don't want to make an enemy of them. And so a lot of people are probably afraid of what would happen if they say something like this is getting a little dangerous. There's a lot of targets that she's putting targets on the backs of a lot of people, and this is reckless at the very least, right? I think they are afraid that she would turn her guns on them. I mean, she has no problem going after all kinds of people. She has no problem dishonoring her murdered, supposedly friend's memory and releasing old messages that he has no say in from the grave. You know, she has no say in her doing that. So I think there's a lot of people who are afraid she would come after them. And then I think there are people who just there's probably also people who it's not fear, it's just their own lack of standards or ethical standards where they just don't care. There are people who see an opportunity in it, like Dave Smith, who's clearly, you know, I think she said in a recent episode that he and Ian Carroll are her closest friends now, and they're always messaging back and forth and helping each other. And I was like, wow, that's very telling. If you are an average of all the people you spend the most time with, I mean, it's a anyway. Yeah, yikes. If you get it, you get it. I just was like, oh. Okay. Let's move on to an example of some of the targets she's making. And while I'm bringing this up, I'm going to mention something else. So, as you saw in one of those clips I played earlier, one of the things that she's doing in this cult, and this really reminded me of QAnon. This part of it really reminds me of QAnon. And it also reminded me of Heaven's Gate and a few others, but those two are pretty well known. So I'll mention those briefly. One of the things that she's doing that a lot of cult leaders do is she's putting a lot of anticipation and build up and faith in these promises or predictions that are supposed to happen. And a lot of her cult, like the longer that they stay in it, I know from some of you reaching out to me and saying, "What's happening with my friends or family that's listening to her? Why are they saying these weird things?" And I've seen it from my friends who are listening to a lot of her. They're suddenly saying very weird things to me. And a lot of them are just, you know, we're going to find the truth and Candace is going to solve it, and this kind of, you know, she's basically been promising that there's this huge conspiracy, that Charlie was betrayed, that TPUSA is involved, Israel's involved, Trump is involved, all of Charlie's closest friends and employees were involved, and she is going to solve it. And she's promised this several times explicitly, that she's going to deliver. And when you look at cults, I tend to think of this as the big thing. Like, what is that big thing that they're all building up to and focusing on? And when you let's look at QAnon for a second. QAnon has done this many times. And if you haven't kept up with them in recent years, you may not know it still exists. And what happens is whenever the big thing doesn't happen, whenever the big prediction doesn't happen or the big thing doesn't happen, a lot of people in a cult some of them will wake up and they'll kind of be like, what was I wrapped up in? And, you know, they'll go through that very difficult process of disengaging from it and deprogramming from it and getting out of it, which can take a long time. And it's not a quick thing to leave. It's very jarring. It's psychologically, it destroys everything you thought you knew was real. So some people have left QAnon as they've realized, like, oh, I can't believe I can't believe that I was getting further and further into that, right? And the apophenia of thinking all these things were connected and related. But it still exists. And the people who don't leave, when the big thing is promised, it doesn't happen, the prediction doesn't come true, the people who stay psychologically double down. I've seen this in woke too. If you've been here before, you know I've talked about this, that people, these inflection points when some people leave woke and the other people stay and double down. The doubling down makes sense psychologically because they're having to explain to themselves why they're not leaving. They're having to explain to themselves why this still makes sense. And also, the longer they stay in it, the more they have sunken cost. They have put cost, they've put time and effort and belief and a part of themselves into this cult of belief. And if you've sunk all of that cost into it, it becomes harder psychologically to leave it. It can't have been for nothing, right? You've sunk so much cost into it. And so in QAnon, the people who stayed in, they've now been through several of these promised, these predicted big things that didn't happen. And the ones who are still there are now so far divorced from reality. And it's funny because I tried to write about this, and I had someone in the comments even this morning. She said, "Oh, now I understand why some of my friends stopped making sense a year or so ago." She said some of my friends were always repeating weird things, like they were saying things like trust the plan, and she's like, "I didn't know what that meant." And thank you for writing this because now I do. Okay, so QAnon here's where they're at right now. Let me just give you a tiny bit of highlights. They think pretty much everyone in the public eye is either dead or has been found guilty in a secret military tribunal and has been killed. They think that everyone in the public eye, like Obama, Hillary, Biden, Trump, that they're all either actors or body doubles. And they think that Trump has been secretly running everything from behind the scenes along with the white hats. They've been secretly running everything and everything's been under control, even all during this fake Biden. They think it was a fake presidency and Biden was an actor. They think that the real Hillary and the real Biden have already been executed and found guilty in this secret tribunal, and that Trump can't tell us all yet because he wants more of the bad actors to reveal themselves. And anyway, I'm building up to this is what they think now. In September, they all started saying the same thing. They all started saying Trump is exiting the movie soon. It's the QAnon people. Trump's exiting the movie soon. They think it's all scripted, and they think that the person we know of as Trump is not the real Trump, but the real Trump's going to come. I know, it sounds crazy, right? Okay. So they think that Trump's going to exit the movie soon, meaning this is the new big thing, that it's all going to be revealed. It'll be all the bad guys will be arrested around the world simultaneously. Trump and the White Hats, the real Trump and the White Hats will come and tell us, we just had to protect you, and we couldn't tell you until now for some reason because you weren't ready to handle the truth yet. But we've been in control this whole time, and we've arrested all these people, and here's all the people we executed secretly. Like they think this big reveal is going to happen. And everything it's like a validation, a culmination of every part of the narrative. So every time one of these big things or predictions doesn't happen, the narrative transforms. And the ones who don't wake up, the ones who stay, they go along with this narrative change. It's such that you get to a point where the narrative has changed so many times to account for all the things that didn't happen, that it gets crazier and crazier. That's why if you talk to one of these QAnon people now, and I have a lot of sympathy for them, but if you talk to one of them now, they're so far apart from where you are. Like they're so divorced from reality. And my point with all this is this tends to happen with cults. Heaven's Gate did the same thing. They did this for decades. They would promise this is going to happen. This thing, it didn't happen. They would promise you can't die. Then one of their founders died. They had to explain that. Then they promised that a spaceship was following Halley's Comet and the spaceship was going to whisk them all away. And that didn't happen. And they had to explain why it didn't happen. And every time the narrative changed, they would lose people who would wake up in Heaven's Gate. But then the people who stayed in would double down and it would get crazier because the narrative had to keep transforming. Candace is promising a very big thing. She's promising that she's going to solve this, and it's going to be it's almost like she's billing it like a Netflix series or something with this ending. How's she going to tie it all up in a bow? She's going to solve this, and it's this big conspiracy with all these different people involved, and she's going to get to the truth. And when she doesn't deliver on that, you can expect to see some people will leave at that point. Some people will say, I can't believe I invested all this time. Yes, I invested a lot of cost in it, but I'm leaving. This is crazy. But a lot of people will not. A lot of people will stay in, and the narrative will transform, and it will be something like, well, look, couldn't get to the truth because of these bad actors and these bad actors and this, and so the truth couldn't come out. I couldn't solve it. Or it'll be something like, well, she kind of sort of solved it, and it was huge, and it was kind of vague, and it involved all these people, and I can't specifically say who or what, but she solved it. And by the way, there's this new big thing now, and now she's getting to the bottom of this thing, and you just have to watch it. You have to stay plugged in, right? Because there's a new big thing now. Before this, there was Bridget Macron is a man thing. And then it was this. Like there will be something else. But it reminds me of a cult in that way is if you watch, especially if you watch as many episodes as I did, is I'm just imagining these people, just the anticipation is building and they are like cult worshipers in the comments, like, "You are a hero." They're like, "You are a hero. You are our David. Thank you so much. We have to protect you at all costs. You are the one. You're gonna solve this. I can't wait. You. The other thing I should have mentioned, I mentioned this when I wrote about it. Like a lot of cult leaders, she's very good at forced teaming. She uses a lot of we and us language. So multiple times in every episode, she's talking about we. I couldn't do this without you and us. And if they're gonna hide this, they're gonna have to. She at one point says they're gonna have to genocide 7 billion people because we won't be stopped. The truth and blah blah blah. We us. It makes it feel like a home. It makes the cult feel like a home. We're all doing this. Couldn't do this without you. And she talks about her mommy sleuth detectives. It's a lot of women who are in this particular cult. And then she elevates herself to the cult leader status. So it's we and us, but she's the leader. She's the David, and she's fighting Goliath. And it's very much like we are going to come to the end of this together. It's like you are buying in. How do I phrase this right? When you're in a cult like this, your identity becomes wrapped up in the cult itself. That's a huge stake in supporting and defending the cult leader because you're part of we and us. Does that make sense? Okay. I want to show you this. So as I mentioned, she's made targets of lots of people, even non-public people, and she regularly targets a couple of people in particular. It seems to me the ones that she does this with the most often are Josh Hammer, Seth Dillon, and Rob McCoy. This is one of those times where she just ran, like in almost every episode I saw, she mentions Seth Dillon and Josh Hammer. They really got under her skin. And this is sort of honing the hatred of the cult members, the people viewing, against these two men.
Lot more. I'm not an idiot and I have self-control and I understand that time is always going to be on the side of truth. Time is on the side of truth. Liars know that that's the reality. Liars know that they have to speak quickly, that they have to speak repeatedly. And I wanted the world to truly understand just exactly what it is that we are up against. Okay. People.
I'm going to pause this too, because it's amazing to me, but you'll recognize if you're a believer. I mean, even, what do they say? Even the demons believe, and even Satan quotes scripture. Narcissistic, psychopath, cluster B people, they're very good at doing DARVO, deny and reverse victim offender. A lot of times she pretends like she's in danger, which elicits this more like attack dog response from her most rabid cult members. But in actuality, what she's doing is putting a huge target on the back of her enemies, the people that she perceives as her enemies anyway. And she will say things that are absolutely true. I think of it like the devil, speaking scripture. She will say the truth always prevails. Yeah, it does. And I think you're completely on the wrong side of it, lady. But the truth will prevail. My friend Samuel say he had a good line of scripture regarding her because she was bragging about the #1 podcast in the world status. And he said, he quoted this verse in the Bible about, you have received your just rewards, which if you're familiar with the Bible, you know what that verse means.
That I deem to be mentally and spiritually evil. Okay. Evil in the true essence of the word evil. People who knowingly lied, instantly lied, repeatedly lied, and continued to do so without a trace of shame. Okay? Without a trace of shame. I mean that.
She's describing herself. Even as recently as this past weekend with the CNN thing and her lies about when the interview happened and what they agreed to speak about. I mean, it's almost hard to keep up with someone who lies this much because there's so many. Where do you start? But okay, let's just start the most recent ones. Those are the two most recent ones.
Right? I really do mean it when I say that you have to be someone that is, or maybe rather someone that is possessed by something that is less than human, subhuman, to do that. There's no humanity in you. That is why.
This is what she's calling Josh Hammer, that he's subhuman, he's possessed. She called Seth Dillon over the weekend on Dave Smith's show. She called Seth Dillon a demon. I mean, again, I think she's, in my opinion, she's saying what she is. This is some astronomical levels of projection.
That is less than human, subhuman, to do that. There's no humanity in you. That is why I named Josh Hammer. I believe he is a deeply disturbed man. Think about that. Now that you have those messages, okay, let's put this in the context. Just a few hours before I dropped that text chain, Josh Hammer was concerning himself with what he.
I'm gonna pause it here. There are so many instances of her mentioning Josh Hammer. Maybe I should do a compilation at some point where you just go and pull all of those, but I'm going to bring up a different episode where she focused on him in particular. She shows his picture a lot too. And there's one time where she shows his picture and she pauses it and is doing this kind of weird, demonic, like maniacal laugh, kind of like Tucker Carlson's laugh. And she's doing that laugh and making fun of the way he looks. And she's saying, this is really what he looks like. He looks like he's evil, It's just sort of like, okay, she really hates him.
Will always be the opposite of what you think it's going to be when you are attacking people who are telling the truth. And the truth is that it is now an established fact, like I said, that Josh Hammer knew that Charlie Kirk's perspectives on Israel were changing. And since that announcement, Twitter users pointed out a very strange tweet that Josh Hammer hit send on 16 hours before Charlie Kirk was assassinated.
Oh gosh, this is one of the worst. I forgot what this was. This is the worst. By the way, this whole text chain she's talking about these group text messages in which Josh Hammer was in there, and Charlie was complaining about. She released these text messages. She wasn't in them, but somebody gave them to her. Somebody who was in the chat gave them to her, and in those messages, I'm sure if you follow her, you've seen them. But he was expressing the same frustration he had expressed publicly in one of his last few interviews with Megyn Kelly, where he said a lot of people who are pro-Israel were putting a lot of pressure on him and he was getting tired of it, and that he was one of the biggest supporters of Israel and he didn't want to be treated like he was anything other than that. And Megyn Kelly was saying similar stuff. Please go watch that interview. He was public about it. So he's expressing that frustration in these group text messages. And then after doing that and saying, that he was getting close to like leaving the Israel, I can't remember how he phrased it exactly, but leaving the Israel cause, or, they were going to run him away. After that, in the group text chain, he still had a conversation with Josh Hammer and a rabbi, preparing him for the college event the next day and preparing him for questions on Israel. He still had that conversation. That still happened. And she wants to, I think it's incredibly dishonest to pretend that a person who is expressing frustrations and blowing off steam has definitively changed. I prefer to listen to the words he actually said. I'm not going to pretend to say, oh, I know that he was secretly about to change his position entirely and say the opposite of everything he had ever said before. But she's doing that. She pretends like it's an established fact. It's not. It's not. At the very least, I think you could say, well, the fact that he was blowing off steam about the pro-Israel side, but then also had a call on how to beef up on the pro-Israel side right after that, like that, at the very least, that's a person who's struggling over the issue. That's not, oh, he definitively went over to some anti-Israel side. That's ridiculous. I don't like people playing fast and loose with facts like that and saying that like that's a truth. But she said that Josh Hammer lied about, where he's at in Israel now. She said that many times. But now what she's about to do is really gross. Right before Charlie Kirk was assassinated, one of the biggest stories that was on X was everyone, including Charlie and many other people, were very upset about the murder that happened in North Carolina on the subway or on the train. Do you guys remember this? We were all talking about Irina, the Ukrainian immigrant who, it was caught on camera. This guy just jumped up and stabbed her to death. And everyone was rightly talking about crime talking about why was this career criminal back out on the streets anyway? And that was the thing everybody was talking about at the time. And many people were talking about, including Matt Walsh and other very influential conservatives, had been saying that they would be in favor of public executions of people who are found guilty of murder, that they think that would be a deterrent, that they would be in favor of that. Well, I've never said I'm in favor of that. I don't know. I'd have to think about it more. But I understand people. I'm not like, oh, how dare you? I understand why people would say that. And so she's about to pull up a tweet where Josh Hammer was talking about Arena, and he was talking about, being supportive of publicly executing people who are found guilty of murder. And she's really bringing this tweet up and trying to imply, look how she does it with the sleight of hand. She is trying to imply that he had advanced knowledge of his friend Charlie Kirk's assassination, and that he was cryptically, and if he did have advanced knowledge, that he would choose to cryptically tweet something about public execution. Haha. Like, it's so gross to say this about someone. I don't care how much you hate them or view them as an enemy. This is so gross.
For no apparent reason at all, he retweeted something that President Donald Trump had sent a full 12 years ago about public executions. Here it is. Here is that retweet. Trump wrote on April 19th, 2013, should be public execution for all to see. You will end this bull fast. And Josh Hammer just replies and says, based. You can see we are in Central Time, so that's about 9:05 p.m. Eastern Time.
Again, just really comprehend what she's doing here. And she goes on in this segment for a while. She's trying to accuse his friend, who she hates, Josh Hammer, of having advanced knowledge and being part of some conspiracy to assassinate him based on a tweet, which is easily explained because when he tweeted that, there was a public conversation happening, and some people saying, I would support public executions of people who are convicted of murder, like the guy who murdered Arena in North Carolina. Like, that's the conversation that was happening on Twitter. It is so gross to do this, and she knows what she's doing. It's not mental illness. It's a moral illness to do that to someone. It's much worse, like the kinds of stuff she's accused him of. I don't know anything about him. Like I said, I didn't know. I know a lot more about, I've followed Seth Dillon for years. I just now started trying to figure out who is Josh Hammer as a result of all of this. So I don't have an opinion on him in one way or the other, but I have an opinion on doing this to a person and to your millions of listeners, turning him into what she called him, subhuman, trying to accuse him. And by the way, this is one of those instances where people called it out and said, wow, you're really trying to throw this disgusting shade on him and say he was involved in murdering his friend. And then she did the Mott and Bailey and said, I never said that. I'm just asking questions. She did the Mott and Bailey. It's disgusting. Yes, spreading gossip and rumors is unbecoming of a Christian. There are many verses about it. Many verses about this. What she's doing is unchristian. That's very true. It's gossip, it's aspersions, it's what if maybe this person was involved? I'm gonna stop here. I've got more to say about this, and I think I covered the most important parts, but I don't want to spend more time on it in episodes, but I might. Maybe I'll do it not on the live shows, but maybe cover some of it and try to get more specific with quick clips. That's not my forte, but I'll try to get some quick clips for people because I do think this is important. I don't think it's at the stage where you can just ignore it. For the past couple years, I have been ignoring it, and I haven't been saying I think she's doing more harm than good. And by the way, she's lately telling people not to vote, that she's not going to vote. She's using her influence or whatever to say she's not voting. She says she regrets her vote for Trump. I've been listening to a lot of this guy on YouTube. He's like a mental health. He's kind of like Dr. Laura, but he's a young man, and I think his audience is more male than Dr. Laura's audience. John Deloney. I just discovered this guy. Some of you probably listen to him. I feel like I'm late to the I didn't know who he was until YouTube recommended it this past week, but I've been listening to some of his videos. I think he's really great at helping people who call in with all kinds of life problems, right? He takes calls like Dr. Laura does. And some of the people who call in, they're dealing with a betrayal or a deception where their spouse has committed infidelity and they feel like they don't know them anymore. Like, who is this person? What happened to them? And they also feel like they can't trust themselves anymore. They'll say, which makes complete sense. That's normal after a betrayal like that. That's what trauma is. It's like you can't even trust your senses and your judgment about people anymore because you felt like you knew this person and now you've gotten new information that you feel like you don't know them at all. And what was truth and what was a lie, right? I mentioned this because I've been listening to this guy and it's a totally different area. It's about personal relationships and he's giving mental health advice and that's interesting. But there is an analogy there to this because I have seen people in my comments saying, I feel really stupid. I feel like stupid that I trusted her, that I believed in her, that I thought, that she was on the up and up or what have you. Don't feel stupid. I would say the same thing that this guy, John Deloney, says to his callers. Look at what a person is telling. If behavior is a language, what are they telling you? How are they behaving? He says that all the time to these people. And I'm going to say it about your favorite influencers. If behavior is a language, what are they telling you? I mean, really, when he's giving people that advice, what he's saying is just another version of what we find all over the Bible, which is to be very discerning and to look at a person's fruits. You shall know them by their fruits, not by what they say they are. Not by them telling you multiple times in every episode that you should trust them and that they never lie and that the only people you can trust. But through their behavior. And when you start to do that, if you find that you were wrong about a person, we have all been there. You didn't do anything wrong. That person pulled the wool over your eyes. And now you can see clearly. And I kind of view that as that's an opportunity to learn and to be more discerning in the future. You learn from that. I've been tricked so many times. or I just didn't see the full picture of a person until circumstances that revealed more about them. Like during the COVID years. During the COVID years, I learned that a bunch of people I previously respected and put some amount of trust in turned out to be authoritarians, or they were cool with authoritarianism from the government. That was a big revealing. And so you learn from that and you learn what are these red flags? What are these behaviors that I can look at that I see repeated? So I'll leave you with that. I do have a couple people to thank. I know I saw you people leaving super chats during this episode, but I saved them to the end. I hope that's okay. I'll just thank, let's see, Legalize Adulthood. Thank you. Oh my gosh, for $100. Thank you for the generous super chat. Says, I did not join the cult of Candace. The membership fees were too high. Suspension of critical thinking. It's a high cost. And I don't have jungle fever. Hell chat. She's very attractive too. I think she's an attractive woman. That helps the people who employ these kind of cult tactics who are not physically attractive. They don't have as wide of a reach. So, thank you very much, Legalize Adulthood. Andrew Knapp, for $2. Fact check. Trust me, bro. Yeah, that's what a lot of it is. It's just like, trust me. I had a dream. Charlie came to me in a dream. Oh, and by the way, Charlie warned me about this other person too in my dream. It's just, no. The quartering. What's up? I didn't see you here earlier. Thanks for the super chat for $20. She says, fun fact, Tyler's friend came out and confirmed that he called Lance my love all the time. Her entire reasoning is it's not how people talk. She didn't address this either. Thank you for that. I didn't know he confirmed that, but it was so weird to me when, I don't know if you're still here, but it was weird to me when people were first criticizing those text messages and they were saying, this is not how normal person, a young man of this age talks. And I was like, also a normal young man doesn't murder someone. Like, this guy is not normal. So we can set that aside. And as someone who watches a lot of true crime, Like, there are all kinds of people when you get into the ways they communicate and the ways they talk. It would not be surprising at all to me if he had a special way. He was above average IQ, that much is clear, and he had a special way of talking to his lover. And also, how many gay men do you know? They say my love all the time. They say my love to me, their friend. Like, that's not uncommon. That blew my mind that people thought like, "Oh, I don't text like this, therefore these texts are fake." It's so weird. Thank you for that, dude. John Burcham. Hey, John, what's up? For a super chat for 1125. Thank you. Says, I'm with her on Macron, though. I so want that to be true, regardless of any evidence. Well, at least you're admitting that you just want it to be true, and you're not going to look at the evidence either way. I think that'd be hilarious if that were true, but I don't think it is. And I look into it. Don't take my word for it. Watch our episodes. I kind of hope that this lawsuit the Macrons are filing, even though I don't like the Macrons at all, I think there needs to be some kind of real world consequence for this crazy kind of defamation she's doing to people. 499 ADL. Thank you. Says she and Kirk had a falling out. I admit I can't keep up. Well, in those group chat texts that she released, he even joked about like he was so upset with some of the donors, the Jewish donors, and how they were fulfilling the stereotype of pressuring him. He was like, he said, I might even bring Candace back. Like she had quit doing events. She had not appeared on his show or his on hers in over like a year or two, I think it had been. She clearly doesn't have any recent texts with him, or she would be putting them out there. I don't think she does. She's putting out all these 7 and 8-year-old texts when they were very close. And also, you can go find it. He was asked a question about her and her anti-Semitism at a TPUSA event. You can go find that clip, and he addressed it. ADL, thanks for becoming a member, dude. Achilles Jones, what's up? 5 pounds says decency. Posting multiple videos post-assassination of Charlie Kirk during grieving period of his widow and children is disgusting. I think so too. That's the other thing is, she has I didn't show on this, but go to her recent videos and look through the comments. She has encouraged every step of the way as she starts to broaden her net of people who she's implicated in some way. The cult, her listeners turn first because they are getting the message she's putting down when she's dealing in innuendo and implication. And she's in that stage right now with Erica. She hasn't outright made the accusation. She's in the innuendo stage, and all of the comments are just disgusting. Like no grace, no sympathy, none of like the Christian fruits of the spirit, no generosity, no charity. It's like no concern whatsoever, no Christian love whatsoever for this woman who just had her husband taken from her in the most violent way and publicly having to deal with it. She's not a private person dealing with this. She's in the public eye while doing it, and people don't want to extend a shred of grace to her. I find it thoroughly evil. Like, it's dark. John Bertram for 2 pounds. Proverbs 27, 2 through 12. John, one of our resident atheists, I'm shocked that you're quoting scripture. I'm going to go look at this afterwards. I'm really happy you are. I'm so happy you are. I know you're still skeptical, but okay, these are the verses about wisdom will save you from the ways of wicked people, specifically from those who speak perverse things and have crooked paths. It's so funny you mentioned this, John Bertram, because my women's group yesterday after church, the topic of our group was wisdom. We were talking about what does it mean in the Bible when it talks about becoming wise and for women to pursue wisdom, and what's it talk about in the proverbial wife when it gives like a description of what a good wife is like. What does that mean? Why does it say get wisdom, get understanding, and how wisdom is sort of the root of all of the other feminine virtues? And anyway, we had a whole discussion about wisdom and discernment yesterday. It was good timing. Caldwell Apologetics. Hold on. Someone's calling me. Okay. Caldwell Apologetics. Jay Witt podcast has also been doing a great job with Candace Owens' analysis. Oh, I think I know who this is. I know you abbreviated it. Is it Jason Whitmore? Is that his name? I haven't watched any, but I had a friend sending me some. I will watch it. I will check him out. I also, even if he disagrees or is on, I'll check it out. I appreciate that. Achilles Jones for 2 pounds says Erica Kirk was the best friend of Charlie. Exactly. Exactly. Like this woman, this usurper who's just presenting herself as his closest friend. It's just completely false. WG for $50. Hey, WG, thank you so much for the generosity. He says, but Carrie, just because Candace is paranoid doesn't mean somebody isn't out to get her. Oh, out to get Candace? Well, I don't know. Anybody in the public eye, especially, she's very much so in the public. I mean, she's a large, according to her, just became the #1 podcast in the world. There's a number of eyeballs on her. Like, I hope she has personal security. I mean, we all know I hardly have any following at all, and I get crazy messages from people. So, you know, I trust that she's like, but here's what I'm saying is there's a difference between taking your safety into account and getting crazy threats from people and stuff, and then um, putting a target knowingly episode after episode on the backs of other people, calling them subhuman, calling them all this stuff, and with as much influence as you have, and then also playing kind of dropping hints that her life is in danger, like she's sort of, this, it's almost like she's involving her cult members in a weird way, and sort of like a Netflix drama or some kind of spy drama, and and the bad guys are out to get her, and like, you better defend her. And I hope that makes sense. It's a little bit it's a little bit of Darvo, honestly, because she's she's contributing to other people having to ramp up their security. She is. As much as she wants to make fun of, she's even mocked. She's mocked Seth Dillon and other people who were the targets of that crazy guy that got arrested for making death threats. She's mocked them for it. Again, no grace, no charity. I don't care how, if you're an enemy with this, you view this person, she clearly views Seth Dillon as an enemy. But where's the humanity in that? You can't even feel bad for him that, like, yeah, somebody was sending death threats. He's got kids. Come on. ADL for $4.99 says Candace is who you call when the Ghostbusters are busy. Apparently now she's got a direct line. She's also saying weird stuff on Twitter and on her podcast about how basically she's saying Ben Shapiro is a bad guy. This, you may not be caught up with the most recent, but Ben Shapiro is bad. She again released messages from like 8 years ago with Charlie where they were making fun of Ben Shapiro, and she's like, Ben Shapiro is a bad guy. Even though, by the way, Charlie Kirk, around the same time as those text messages she released, he tweeted about the 3 people he listens to the most and who've helped him the most shape his opinions, and the smartest people. And go find the tweet. It was in April of 2018. He said it was Jordan Peterson, Ben Shapiro, and I think the third was Dennis Prager. So give me a break. That was at the same time he was public, and the last person he had, the last guest he had on his show before he was assassinated was Ben Shapiro. And you can go and watch that episode. And they were very friendly. And they were cracking jokes and laughing together. So don't try and cast some spell over people, and which is what she's doing, and trying to say Charlie hated Ben, they hated each other, whatever. We've saw them behave together. Either you're saying your friend's a liar and he was pretending to be friendly with Ben in public, which is a terrible thing to do too, or you're a liar. So anyway, lately she's been saying, Ben Shapiro's the new bad guy. I don't know, putting a target on his back. Achilles Jones for 2 pounds. Candace qualified herself to be on The View. Yes. Leland for $10 says she's like Oliver Stone. Everything is connected to Ben Helicopter or Halliburton. I had a friend who, as I mentioned, struggled with schizophrenia, and there's a thing that happens where they obsess. Sometimes there's a central topic that's like central to all of their whole delusion. And I don't see this as much with Candace, honestly. I don't see this with her, but I do see this with a lot of the people lately who are defending her. they tend to come back to Israel a lot. I'm not saying she doesn't. I'm just saying I don't think she's not expressing this. She's not illustrating this in the same way a lot of the commenters are. But a lot of people online, it doesn't matter what I'm talking about, and it's never about Israel. I don't have anything to say about Israel. It's always about something else, and then they'll come in the comments and they'll start talking about Israel. They can't talk about anything else, and it reminds me of that topic obsession. I had a friend who struggled with this, was actually diagnosed with schizophrenia, and it was a particular breed of dog. Like, no matter what you were talking about, she would bring it back to that dog breed and bring and insert that topic somehow. And some of the Israel obsession reminds me of that. It's like the first thing they think about when they wake up, everything they say is related to it. Like the whole lens that they put on through which they view the whole world is related to Israel. They think it's that way for you. WG for $50. Thank you, WG. Thanks for the super chat. Says, I was in the army for over 20 years too. So can we even trust this super chat? Exactly. Exactly. What does that even mean? I want to do a comedy video where you just read the ingredients on a muffin box and read it in that way as if it's suspicious and connect the dots and and wait a minute. I saw butter in another recipe. And like you've got the red lines and how many of these recipes have butter in them? Something nefarious is afoot. Leland became a new member. Jeanette. Hey, what's up, Jeanette? I know you, pretty lady. Became a new member. Thanks for being here. This is a bit of an unusual episode today, I know. But it's not for everyone. If it's not for you, no worries. But for those of you who have questions about it or wanted to say, like, what do you think is going on? And people are asking me, real life friends are asking me what I think about it. So this is my best attempt to lay some of it out. If you have questions, feedback, comments, please let me know below. And maybe I'll spend some time I hate putting together. Maybe I'll spend some time putting together some clips, though, that illustrate it better in a very short form. I'm sure that would be helpful. As I mentioned at the beginning, there's 2 people who do that already, and they do a much better job than I ever will. You should go and check out and subscribe to Milk Bar TV. His name is Nathan Livingstone. And the other was, her name is, I'm not as familiar with her, but I had one of her clips here. You guys help me. It's Natalie Jean. Yeah, NJBEISNER. You should go and follow her as well. Okay, that's it. I'll see you guys later. We'll get back to our regularly scheduled stuff on Wednesday. Okay, take care. Bye-bye.